The Red Shoes. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Karen. She was a pretty little girl. Everyone always told her how pretty she was. But she was very poor. And during the summer, she went barefoot because she had no shoes. In the wintertime, she wore large wooden shoes that made her feet hurt. An old shoemaker's wife felt sorry for her, and so she made a pair of red shoes for Karen to wear. Karen was very excited to be wearing shoes, and red shoes at that. When Karen's mother died, Karen wore the red shoes to her funeral. They were not suitable to wear to a funeral, but those shoes were all Karen had. When she walked humbly behind her mother's coffin, a large horse-drawn carriage went by. In it was a wealthy old woman. When she saw Karen, she felt sorry for her and stopped to talk to the pastor.
"Please, give me the little girl,"
said the old woman.
"I will take good care of her."
And so Karen came to live with the wealthy old woman. Karen thought the old woman noticed her because of her red shoes. But the woman thought them ugly and threw them out as soon as she could. One day, the queen was visiting the town with her daughter. Everyone came out to see them pass by, including Karen. The little princess had on the prettiest white dress and the most beautiful red shoes Karen had ever seen. When Karen was old enough to be confirmed at church, the old woman took her to a shoe store to buy a pair of shoes. Among all the shoes, there was a pair of beautiful red shoes like those the princess had worn. Now, the old woman could not see very well, and when Karen pointed to the red shoes, the old woman said,
"Are they made of shiny leather?"
The shoemaker said,
"Of the finest leather." "Let's get them then,"
said the old woman. She had no idea that they were red shoes. She would never have allowed Karen to wear red shoes to church. So Karen wore the beautiful red shoes to church to be confirmed. And during the whole service, which was long, she thought everyone was looking at her red shoes. When it was time to sing the hymns, all Karen thought about were her red shoes. The old woman heard from everyone after the church service that Karen had worn red shoes. She was angry and told Karen that she was only to wear black shoes to church from that day on. On the following Sunday, there was a communion service at the church. Karen looked at the black shoes she was supposed to wear. Then she looked at her beautiful red shoes. She wore the red shoes to church. When the old woman and Karen came to the church, there was an old soldier who stood by the door. He looked down at Karen's shoes and said,
"My, what pretty dancing shoes you've got, and dance those shoes certainly shall."
All during the communion service, Karen thought of nothing else but her pretty red shoes. And everyone in the church looked at Karen's red shoes. When the service was over, the old woman and Karen were getting ready to enter the carriage when the old soldier came up to Karen. He said,
"My, what pretty dancing shoes."
Karen had to dance a little for the soldier, and when she started to dance, she could not stop. Her feet danced and danced. It seemed as though the shoes had powers of their own. Karen danced around the churchyard, and the coachman had to run after her to catch her. He lifted Karen into the carriage, but even then, Karen could not stop dancing. She danced inside the carriage and ended up kicking the old woman. At last, they took off Karen's shoes and she stopped dancing. The red shoes were put into a closet, but Karen couldn't help looking at them all the time. Then one day the old woman became very sick. Karen was the only one who could take care of her. But there was a big party in town to which Karen was invited. She looked at her red shoes and decided to go. But when she went to the party, her feet would not do what she wanted them to do. When Karen wanted to go right, her feet went left. When Karen wanted to go up the stairs, the feet went down the stairs. In fact, the shoes danced all the way down the stairs and out into the street. It was dark now, but Karen danced right out of town and into the dark forest. There she saw the old soldier who said,
"My, what pretty dancing shoes you have."
Karen was very scared, but she went on dancing. She tried to take off her red shoes, but she could not. She danced in rain and in sunshine for many days and nights. Nights were the worst. One night, she danced past the church door, and there stood an angel who looked very angry. He held a long sword in his hand.
"Dance you shall. You will dance till you die,"
said the angel in a stern voice. Karen was terrified. The next morning, she danced past the place where she used to live. she saw people inside singing hymns around a coffin. The old woman had died, and Karen could not go inside the house. She danced away in her red shoes. She danced into the dark night. She danced up to a small house where an old woodcutter lived. She tapped on the window and said, "Please come out, for I cannot come in." The woodcutter came out, and Karen said to him, "Please help me and cut off my feet." And so the woodcutter cut off Karen's feet. The red shoes with Karen's feet inside danced away into the forest. Then the kind woodcutter carved wooden feet for Karen and gave her crutches. Karen thanked him from her heart. "I have suffered enough," said Karen. "Now I will go to church where everyone could see me." But when she got to church, she saw the red shoes dancing in front of the door. Karen went away afraid. A whole week passed. Karen cried many tears. "Now I have suffered enough. I will go to church. I am as good as all those who go to church," thought Karen. But when she tried to go through the church doors, she saw the red shoes again. Karen left quickly. Then she went to the pastor's house and asked the pastor's wife if she could work there. Karen promised to work hard and never complain. The pastor's wife felt sorry for her and took her in. And true to her word, Karen worked very hard. She was quiet and thoughtful. She sat and listened to every word the pastor read from the Bible. And when she heard other children talk about pretty clothes, Karen would shake her head. On Sunday, they asked Karen if she would like to come to church with them. Karen looked sadly at her crutches and went to her room instead. There she prayed to God. "Oh God, please help me!" And she cried. The sun shone very brightly through the small window in her room. Then she saw the angel of God standing in front of her. He no longer carried the sharp sword, but had instead a rose branch. The angel touched the ceiling with the branch. He also touched the walls. The ceiling and the walls disappeared, and Karen found herself inside the church. The church had come to her little room. Karen sat in the pew with everyone else, and she heard the pastor's wife saying,
"Karen, I'm so glad you've come."
"God is kind," said Karen. Her heart was full of joy and peace, and no one asked about the red shoes.
Mermaid. Deep in the ocean there lived a sea king. The ocean was his kingdom, and it was a very beautiful world. Tall seaweed swayed gently with the currents under the sea. Bright, colorful fish, both large and small, swam everywhere. The Sea King had 6 beautiful daughters. The youngest daughter was the prettiest. She had clear skin and long flowing hair. Her eyes were as blue as the ocean itself. She was a mermaid like her sisters. She had the body of a person, but instead of feet, she had a large fish tail. The little mermaid was not like other mermaids. She loved everything about life on land. She thought of nothing else. Her favorite treasure was a marble statue of a young man that she found from a sunken ship. It was the custom that when a mermaid reached the age of 15, she could rise up out of the sea. She could sit on a rock in the moonlight and watch ships and towns far off. The little mermaid could not wait to turn 15. One by one, her older sisters turned 15 and had the pleasure of going to the surface. They came back with wonderful stories to tell their little sister. Finally, it was the little mermaid's turn to go up. Oh, how wonderful that was! She sat on a large rock in the moonlight and saw ships go by. She even saw the town where people lived. There was one ship that the little mermaid watched carefully. Colorful lanterns hung everywhere on the ship, and there was music. The little mermaid swam close to the ship and looked inside the cabin windows. She saw many people beautifully dressed. They were having a birthday party for a handsome young prince. Late in the night, the party was finally over. The lanterns were turned off and the music stopped. All the guests were all asleep, including the prince. The little mermaid still followed the ship. She wanted to see more of the prince. Soon the waves began to rise high. There was a terrible storm coming. The sailors on the ship worked hard to steady the ship, but the storm came quickly. Huge waves tossed the ship here and there. Finally, the ship sank. The little mermaid knew that the prince could not live underwater, so she quickly dove into the ocean and rescued him. She brought him to the shore as far as she could take him and waited for the morning to come. When the sun rose brightly, the little mermaid kissed her prince and sang songs to him. But when she heard voices in the distance, she quickly swam away and left the prince. She hid behind a large rock to see what would happen. The prince was found by some people who lived in the town. The little mermaid could not stop thinking about the prince. She was sad that he would never know who saved him from the ocean. She found out where he lived, and whenever she could, she watched him from afar. The little mermaid loved him. Many days passed, and the little mermaid grew more and more sad. She missed the prince. She wanted to see him. But how? The little mermaid didn't want to be a mermaid any longer. She wanted to be a human so she could be with her prince.
I must visit the sea witch. She is the only one who knows how I can become human,
she thought. The Sea King did not allow any of the mermaids to talk to the sea witch because she was evil. But the little mermaid went anyway. The sea witch lived in a dark cave. The little mermaid was afraid, but she went inside the cave to look for the witch. Soon she heard a voice saying,
"Come closer, little mermaid. I know why you are here. I can help you."
It was the witch.
You can?
Asked the little mermaid.
You want to be a human so you can be with your prince,
said the witch.
Yes, that's true. Can you turn me into a human?
Asked the little mermaid, still very afraid of the witch.
Of course I can. There is nothing my magic can't do. But do you really want to do this? Remember, once you become human, you can never be a mermaid again. You will never see your father or your sisters. Is that what you want?
Asked the witch. The little mermaid was sad because she would miss her family very much. But she could never be happy unless she could be with the prince. So she said,
Yes, I still want to be a human.
That's not all,
said the witch.
If your prince marries someone else, the first morning after his marriage, you will turn into the foam on the sea.
The little mermaid trembled in fear, but she said,
I understand.
But what will you give me in return?
Asked the witch.
Why, nothing. I don't have anything to give you,
said the little mermaid.
Oh, but you do, my darling. You have the prettiest voice in all the kingdom. Give me your voice, and I will make you into a human,
said the witch.
But if I give you my voice, how am I supposed to talk to the prince?
Asked the little mermaid.
By your actions, my dear. Use your graceful hands and your beautiful eyes to tell the prince how much you love him,
said the witch. The little mermaid did not want to lose her voice, but what else could she do? So she agreed to give her voice to the witch. The witch gave her a small bottle and said,
At sunrise, take this drink and swim to the shore. Drink it, and you will get legs.
So at sunrise, the little mermaid went close to the shore and drank from the little bottle. Just as the witch said, her fishtail split in two and became two beautiful legs. The little mermaid was very happy. She was a human. The little mermaid waited for the prince to find her. Just as he did every morning, the prince took a walk on the beach. And on this morning, he saw a very pretty young girl lying on the shore.
Who are you?
He asked the little mermaid. But the little mermaid had no voice.
You can't talk?
Said the prince.
That's okay. Come, I'll take you to my home. We will take care of you.
He brought the little mermaid to the palace, and from that day she lived in the palace. The little mermaid was the happiest person in the world. She was finally with her prince every day. The prince grew to love the little mermaid, but not as someone he would marry someday, but as his little sister. He did not know that it was the little mermaid who had saved his life. Then it was time for the prince to find a wife. There was a beautiful princess from a nearby country who came to visit. The prince fell in love with the princess, and the little mermaid's heart broke. She knew that she would die the morning after the prince married the princess. The prince saw that the little mermaid was sad and told her,
Don't worry, little one. You will come and live with us forever. We will take good care of you and love you.
The prince did not know that the little mermaid would die. On the night of the wedding of the prince, there was a big party on a ship. The little mermaid looked sorrowfully into the ocean, thinking about what would happen in the morning. Then she saw her sisters in the water. The little mermaid saw that they had cut short their beautiful long hair. The sisters said,
We have given our hair to the sea witch, little sister, to save you. Here, take this dagger. You must kill the prince tonight. Then you will become a mermaid again and come back to live with us.
Late that night, when everyone was sleeping, the little mermaid went into the room where the prince and his new bride were sleeping. But she could not kill the prince. She loved him, and she wanted him to live happily with his new wife. So she went back out and waited for the sunrise. Just as the morning rays struck the ocean, the little mermaid jumped into the ocean. Her body became foam on the sea that sparkled in the sunlight.